a while. And let's connect with Dr. Maha Yahya. She's the director of Carnegie Middle East Center in Beirut. Maha, thank you for joining us to talk about this. You've been following developments over the last hour or so and have seen what has happened. What do you make of this strike into Beirut from Israel?
Hi, good evening, and thank you for having me. It's a significant escalation. This is, as your colleague said earlier, this is the second time that Beirut has been struck. The southern suburbs of Beirut in particular have been struck since October 7th happened. The first was on January 3rd when Saleh al-Aruri, the Hamas leader, who was the major liaison between Hezbollah and Hamas, was assassinated in a targeted killing. This is even more significant because the news we're getting is that there are at least 2 people dead and around 10 people injured. Civilians, it seems. The news is still coming out, but the area is very densely populated, so it's likely that the civilian toll will go up.
And when you saw the news that this had happened, what was your initial reaction? Were you concerned that this could be, as you mentioned, an escalation, but were you worried that it could become more than that?
Absolutely. We've been very worried about this, and we're hoping that whatever response Israel was, or whatever attack Israel was going to conduct would actually stay away from Beirut, because this is likely now to trigger a response from Hezbollah. A lot depends now on how Hezbollah is going to react. Will they, especially as news now is emerging that the person they had targeted, Fuad Shukr, was not killed. He had exited the building right before, but there are apparently reports of he's been injured but not killed. So if that is the case, the Hezbollah will most likely retaliate. However, the hope is that their retaliation will also remain within certain limits, as we saw in the Iran-Israel exchange of fire back in April, and it will end there. If it does not end there, then the likelihood of this escalating much further and dragging in Hezbollah's allies in the region, including the Popular Mobilization Forces in Iraq, the Houthis in Yemen, amongst others, and then also de facto dragging in the UK, the US, and others into this fight goes up significantly, and that's where the main concern is. This was obviously wreak havoc on both Lebanon, but also on Israel. What we've seen until now in Gaza will be a drop in the bucket of what could happen if this really becomes an all-out war. And it's something that everybody wants to avoid, including Hezbollah, but I believe also some members of, not all, but some members of the Israeli political establishment, as well as the security establishment.
Now, we often hear that both parties want to avoid an all-out escalation, but at the same time they keep persisting with actions that draw us ever closer. What do you make of that? Should we take that at face value?
Not really. I mean, we know that at least within the Israeli cabinet, there are tensions between Gallant, who wants to have an all-out war with Lebanon. We saw the head of Meretz, the left-wing party in Israel, actually calling on invading Lebanon and creating a buffer zone. It's almost like no one's learned anything from history. If the idea is to eliminate Hezbollah, history has shown us and experience has shown us, and it's recent history, it's not that long ago, that you simply do not, you cannot destroy organizations like this through military means. And invading Lebanon was invaded by Israel in 1982. They occupied the country until 2000 at a significant cost to both Lebanon and to Israeli lives. So I think that the risk is very much there in terms of an actual escalation. I think on the part of Hezbollah and Iran, since October 7th, they really have not wanted to get into an all-out war, but Hezbollah seems to have caught itself basically between a rock and a hard place. They've declared that they will only stop bombing Israel or exchanging fire with Israel if there is a ceasefire in Gaza. At the same time, they've been trying very hard not to escalate things further because they do want to avoid an all-out war. Iran understands that an all-out war will destroy assets that it has spent the past 4 decades building in the region. Hezbollah is the crown jewel, if you like, in terms of its first line of defense should it get attacked. So there are many reasons why Iran and Hezbollah do not want an all-out war. On the Israeli side, the estimates, basically security estimates of the costs on Israel should an all-out war happen are also significant in terms of loss of life, but also in terms of damage to civilian infrastructure. So for me, what we need now is immediately a ceasefire in Gaza. That is the first step to de-escalating tensions in the region, across the region, including the Red Sea and the attacks that we've seen on shipping lanes in the Red Sea.
Maha, I just want to ask you one question before we let you go. You mentioned Iran several times there. For those watching that may be not too familiar with who all the players are in the Middle East, just quickly help us understand the role that Iran plays when it comes to Israel and Hezbollah and the region.
Well, Iran is the major sponsor of what is called the Axis of Resistance, which includes Hezbollah in Lebanon. Hamas recently, through 2 years ago, rejoined the fold, so to speak. They had fallen out with Iran over Iran's support of Bashar al-Assad in Syria, but now rejoined the Islamic Jihad, various groups that operate under the Popular Mobilization Forces in Iraq, and the Houthis in Yemen, amongst other fringe groups in Syria, including Fatimiyun, Zainabiyun, and others. This kind of group of non-state actors, military non-state actors that span various countries in the region, also have something called the Unity of Front strategy, which they announced 2 years ago. And this is, I jokingly call it a NATO of sorts of their own, where if one is attacked, then they will all jump into the fray and support each other. And that's what we're in part seeing in Gaza today. Iran is instrumental in this because it is the one that has helped create, fund, and support all of these groups, and they are an extension of its own strategic objectives, an extension of its own power across the Levant and up to the Mediterranean. That's on the part. Now, the shadow war between Iran and Israel has been going on for decades, long before all of this was created, this network of non-state actors. And we've seen this erupt every once in a while, whether it's in the assassination of scientists or cyber warfare, etc.
Yeah, Dr. Maha Yahya, thank you so much for helping us understand developments in the Middle East better and giving us that vital context. Dr. Maha Yahya there, she's the director of Carnegie Middle East Center in Beirut.